So thank you. Good afternoon. I think we can start now. We are a little late in starting the session. I think people are still coming from lunch. So, but I hope we get some extra time towards the end. So welcome everybody, excellencies, participants, ladies and gentlemen. This afternoon session is a mayoral forum and dialogue. You will hear it directly from the mayors and other representatives. We have a very good panel for you. Before I introduce the panel, I would like to say a few words that yesterday Habitat 3 was concluded at Quito, and this is really a very good time that we bring this to attention also when we are discussing this in UNIDO. It is a very timely conference that we have in UNIDO, and I will just read a draft outcome which is being circulated, and I would remind you of a couple of sentences from there. So I quote, "We commit to develop vibrant, sustainable, and inclusive urban economies, building on endogenous potentials, competitive advantages, cultural heritage, and local resources, as well as resource-efficient and resilient infrastructure, promoting sustainable and inclusive industrial development and sustainable consumption and production patterns, and fostering an enabling environment for businesses and innovation, as well as for livelihood." So this is something that is coming from Quito, and I'm sure that you would like to consider this in the context of what we are discussing today. UNIDO, of course, is quite involved in this exercise. We have also a program on cities, and we are looking at population centers, looking at smart cities, but I'm sure you have heard that in the previous session, so I will not go into it. My own experience before I joined UNIDO is actually very interesting, and I'm very keen to learn what we discussed today, is also that I spent a few years at the Municipal Corporation of Delhi. As you know, that is one of the biggest, it's a metropolitan city, it's one of the fastest growing cities. In 1951, the population of Delhi was 1.5 million, and today we are talking of 20 million and growing upwards. So you can imagine it is the second largest city in India, and by population, it is now one of the biggest cities in India. Of course, this two-day conference is paying attention to all the issues surrounding urbanization, and these are many, and I will not talk too much on that. So I will bring you to the first speaker. We have the first keynote speaker, Mr. Roman Mendley, and he's is the Smart Cities Program Manager, Global Coordinator for Smart Cities, ICLEI, Local Governments for Sustainability, Germany. Mr. Mendley has expertise in sustainable transitions of complex urban systems, industrial transformation, and energy transition in cities, standardization for smart cities, low carbon development, and environmental management. These are only some parts that I've highlighted. You have his full description, but I hope we will hear something on these issues. Mr. Mendley, I will give you the floor, but I would also like to ask you that you are talking of smart cities. Are we looking, for me the question is, could the smart cities, could the cities as they exist now, you know, I spoke of metropolitan cities, mega cities, can they be transformed as smart cities, or do we need to build new capitals or new cities? For example, the issue of, I was there when the announcement of Cairo, the new Cairo was announced. So is it possible to take existing cities and make them smart? Or do we need to move away, shift capitals? It has happened elsewhere also. Lagos moved to Abuja, and so on. So I hope you will give us more insights into the smartness of cities. Thank you.
Thanks. I'll try and answer that question. You can let me know if I'm not concrete enough. Then please ask me again. But maybe I'll move over there real quick for the presentation. Ladies and gentlemen, dear colleagues from UNIDO, distinguished mayors that we have here on the panel, it's a special pleasure for me to have the honor to have a keynote speech here today, talking about what I was asked to talk about was basically the history and the future of sustainable urban development, which I hope you agree with me is a very, very big task, and I'll do my best to provide something useful that will not necessarily be answered by the real experts on this, which are the mayors on this panel. To delve right into it and maybe talk a little bit about in what capacity I'm here and who we are. ECLAI is the organization that I represent, ECLAI, Local Governments for Sustainability. We are a global network of 1,500 cities worldwide in more than 100 countries. Dedicated to promoting sustainable urban development. So we are really covering all of the different areas that fall under urban development and sustainability, and we do so in 18 different locations in the world now with over 300 staff. 18 because we just opened an office in China this year, which didn't make it onto this map yet because the map is a little bit outdated. Why we act? I wanted to get to this point because when we ask about the history and the future of the cities and these kind of things, from my perspective and from ECLAI's perspective, it is really important to remind ourselves over and over again what the real challenges are that we are facing in the urban environment today. And I'm sure that many of you will know this graph specifically. This is from the 2004 book, the 30-year update on the limits to growth from the Club of Rome. And this, for me, sums up really the challenge that we are facing, specifically within cities, but also within the industry. And I want to not leave you with this graph, but take the first, let's say, half or 1/3 of my presentation to put real pictures and numbers to this graph, what this actually means, and then talk about what this means for the cities market and get into the smart cities discussion as well. This number and this map, many of you have been seeing. Everybody is using it as a first starting point in their presentation. This is that by 2050 we will have 66% of the global population living in cities. That is about 6 billion people to be expected, which is a very large number. And if you look at where this growth is happening, then we will actually see that it is happening mostly in the developing countries, and maybe this is of special relevance also for the One Belt, One Road initiative, because many of the cities are actually that are connected to this initiative now are actually on that list of those that will see the most significant growth in the next 30 to 40 years. What this means in terms of numbers, and this is where I get into what I promised to do, namely putting pictures to the actual challenge. This means when we look at the housing market, for example, it means that we have to build 100,000 housing units every single day until then, in order to be able to house these people. And this number should really speak for itself, and the question that we have to ask ourselves is essentially, what kind of housing do we want to provide for people? Do we accept that cities will, in many cases, grow naturally through migration, where people will build informal settlements because the market is not able to catch up, and create pictures like this one, which probably most of you know is from Brazil. It's one of the favelas there. Or are we actually able to provide housing that is comfortable for people, that is safe for people, and that is affordable for people? Second picture is, who are these people that we're talking about when we talk about 6 billion? One interesting fact that I find is that as opposed to today, where we have about 8% of people over 65 living in these 7 billion people on the planet, this number will actually double. The percentage of old people, ladies and gentlemen, will double to 16% by 2050. So when we talk about providing housing, we are not providing it for the same kind of demographic by 2050. We're providing it for people that are significantly older on average, which means that we have to design different types of houses. And here, ladies and gentlemen, for me, it is very important to state that the way that we look at people in the urban environment is absolutely crucial, and we cannot cherry pick what the people are looking like at the end of the day. We'll have to provide housing and infrastructure for those people that we actually have in our cities. The third number that I want to give you is to feed these people, we will need to increase our agricultural output by about 70% compared to today. 70% more food is what we need to provide for the people that will be living mostly in cities. And this is another huge challenge because we know that a lot of the climate greenhouse gas emissions are actually coming from the agricultural sector. We have a lot of issues with biodiversity loss. We have an issue with bee populations collapsing around the world. These are all issues that are essentially connected to the way that we do agriculture today, and we have already optimized in lots of different ways our agricultural system for production and output maximization. And so we're running into a situation where on one hand we have to increase the agricultural output, and on the other hand we have to make it much more sustainable, which at the moment seem to be two fundamentally different ways of looking at agriculture as it is today. The next one is the water demand. And here, just for me, we are getting into areas where it is maybe a little bit less obvious where the markets in these kind of things are. And this is one of the main messages that I want you to take away from this presentation. By 2050, there will be a 55% increase in the water demand for clean drinking water in cities, while at the same time, we will expect in many regions of the world that their water capacity or their ability to provide water will decrease by 2/3. And again, you have a challenge at hand that is at the moment not, it is talked about, of course, in international forums. It is one of the sustainable development goals, but from my perspective, it is not sufficiently addressed by industry and by those that are looking into cities as markets and as business opportunities. The next one is waste management. Again, a number that probably many of you will know, but now I have to actually look into my notes real quick so that I tell you the right thing. Yes, so we will expect that by 2025, no, not 2050, but 2025, the world and mostly the cities will be producing 6 million tons of solid waste every single day. That is 5,000 trucks on the road, 5,000 kilometers of waste trucks on the road, if you want to put it in one line, which is a significant amount of waste, and we will have to be able to handle this. And now I'm getting to one of my personal favorite topics, because whenever I have time to go on vacation, I'm a scuba diver, and I care very deeply for the Sustainable Development Goal 14, which is life under the sea. And I know that this is one of the topics that often gets brushed under the carpet, but I want to establish a connection here to what this means for cities. And that is 8 million tons of plastic are entering the ocean per year, which is 20% of the entire need of Europe for plastic at the end of the day. And this is a significant amount of economic value that we're pumping into the oceans, but it also means that we create an amount of plastic in the oceans that will, by 2050, have exceeded the amount of fish. We will have more plastic in the oceans than fish in the oceans by 2050 if you continue the way that we are. And this is a significant leak of the waste system of important resources that we all need and that we all use that go into a place where they're really not supposed to be. And the last picture, I know I'm preaching to the choir here when I say these kind of things, but you can hopefully tell that I'm very passionate about these things, is that by 2050, together with the plastic waste that we drop into the oceans, together with the coral bleaching events that we have worldwide that are climate change induced, together with ocean acidification, we expect that there is almost no living coral reef in the world anymore. And where's the connection to cities for this? Not only are cities the main drivers and the main reasons for these kind of things, and we have to address them, but also there's another number, which is 500 million people worldwide depend on these very coral reefs that we're about to lose for their livelihoods at the moment. And by 2050, we will have to not only care with all of the negative effects. It's not just about loss of biodiversity, or not even just the the free service that these reefs and also mangroves and similar ecosystems are providing for us in terms of adaptation, in terms of preventing flooding and these kind of things, and preventing tsunamis in the coastal areas, we will also have to find alternative ways for those people to make a livelihood, 500 million people, if we don't save those kind of infrastructures that we at the moment enjoy for free and take for granted every day. So I'll stop the preaching about the Sustainable Development Goals here. I'm sorry if some of you get bored by hearing this too often, but let me. I think it was very important to connect these kind of pictures to what we're actually talking about when we look at these 17 goals. And one thing that I've heard repeatedly, also in this conference, is that there's certain SDGs that are mentioned more often than others. SDG 9 is certainly one of them. SDG 8 you hear very often is used. SDG 11 when it comes to cities, of course, this is one of the key points. But what I want to really say with these different slides that I've shown you is that I strongly believe, and ICLEI strongly believes, that we cannot cherry pick the goals that we like. We cannot say that cities are only addressing a certain amount of goals. Cities have to, and they can, address every single one of these sustainable development goals. And the point about this is that we had a couple of nice quotes the last couple of days, also from Mr. Navarro, who sent us this video message, who said that the most forward-looking industries are the ones that are investing today into the right markets. What are the right markets at the end of the day? And for me, these are not the ones where you can immediately jump to the conclusion and say, when it's about infrastructure and building buildings, then of course there's a market, so let's address the sustainable development goals. The question is, which are the markets of the future? And these ones, for me, ladies and gentlemen, are the ones where cities have a pressing need to address them and nobody is caring about them today. The waste management, the plastic in the oceans, life on land, these kind of things, these are the markets, because at the end of the day, we will have a situation where we have to address these kind of goals. There will be no more time to find new solutions for it. And those companies that are addressing them today and those industries that are addressing them today are the ones that are future-proofing their own business strategies. And what is the role of cities in all of this? Of course, I'm pretty sure that we'll have a lot of interesting points on this stuff from our distinguished mayors that are here on the panel now, much better than I can address it. But one of the key things is that the political decision makers are the ones that are responsible for steering the markets and correcting the market failures that we have today, to provide these win-win solutions that we're all seeking out. Where is the profit in saving the planet? Where is the profit in addressing SDG 14 and 15 and 16 and so on? And we can do this if we are thinking about creatively about what kind of value leaks we have. Think about all the plastic that goes into the ocean and is not recycled. There's a significant amount of money to be made. The same thing about resilience, I would say as well. There's a significant amount of money to be made. Some of the insurance companies are actually doing studies today that where they try and find out how much money can be saved in the future, because they are the ones that will have to pay for the infrastructure that gets flooded, that is not resilient, and so on. So they are doing those studies, but we are only at the beginning of this, and we have to create the markets that are not there today if we want to address the SDGs. How am I doing for time? Am I done? Pretty much?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, I have a couple of more slides on ICLEI, but maybe to just skip over the less interesting ones, and I'll address your question on smart cities happily then on the panel. Just to give you one idea of what ICLEI is actually doing, because I know that you've been listening to me rambling on about the SDGs right now, which all of you actually know a lot about. So one of the things that we do is that we help cities to access the kind of finance that they need for implementing their sustainable development projects. And this we do under the Transformative Actions program. We have, it's essentially a project pipeline. Let me jump to this side real quick. It's essentially a project pipeline where we mobilize our member cities to apply with project ideas to us, where we then select some of these projects and provide feedback. How do you make them more bankable? How do you access the kind of finance that cities really need? who can you go to? Is it development banks? Is it private investors? And how do you do the project management around these kind of things, or improve it in a way that you have access to these kind of abilities? And at the same time, we're creating visibility for these projects on an international scale. This is one of the examples on how ICLEI works and supports cities. There's many more, but I'll probably just stop here. I just wanted to give you this as a little appetizer on what my organization is actually doing. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Mendele. I know the time is short, but you covered a large ground talking of the issues surrounding housing, demographics, food, and I would even add food safety is another issue, water, waste management, biodiversity. And as you know that as of today, for example, there are 28 mega cities in the world, but by 2030, it's expected that these will increase to 41. Now, this happens only by usurping more land. So the cities are growing and usurping agricultural land, which is used for growing food. So I go to the next panel, the mayor of Astrakhan, Mr. Oleg Polmordvinov, who was advisor to the mayor of Astrakhan city on issues of construction, architecture, and land utilization, and was the first deputy chairman of Astrakhan city. Among other jobs, he was also the deputy chairman of the government of Astrakhan region for functionality of life supply systems and environmental safety. After which he was also the head of the administration of Astrakhan city. Here, the question is that it's these cities, the smaller cities, the population of which is less than 1 million, who will be the mega cities or the bigger cities of tomorrow. So how are you addressing the problem in your city, Mr. Mayor? Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, distinguished colleagues, city mayors, in my report, I precisely wanted to focus on the question, can modern cities, in other words, the question that the moderator has just raised, can a modern city transition to a new phase, in other words, to become a smart city? The project that I would like to talk to you about today is Astrakhan, a Sustainable City, is a project we have been developing together with UNIDO experts for about a year and a half now. Firstly, I wanted to thank the leadership of UNIDO, Mr. Ali Junger, and the Russian mission to UNIDO for this opportunity to speak at this forum, One Road, One Belt, One Road. It is an honor for us to be present here today to represent our city and the joint projects that we are elaborating with UNIDO. Let me give you a little bit of a historical background. Astrakhan is a city in Russia which is one of the oldest economic and cultural center of the Lower Volga and the Caspian region. It's often been called the Northern Venice or the Caspian capital of Russia. We have over 100 ethnic groups living here and 14 different religions represented here. The population of Astrakhan today is over 530,000 people. Astrakhan has always been on the Silk Route. It is at the crossroads of the historic trade routes, and the city very quickly became a center of and a hub for the Han and Golden Horde period. In the 14th century, the city was called Hajid Karshan, was also a major hub for the transit of the trade routes between east and west. The caravans from goods from the east went through Saranbaitu and then went in two directions, south to the steppes of the Caucasus and west to Azak, where they were awaited by merchants from Venice and elsewhere. Spices and silks in the 14th century went through Azak, and the Italian trade colony there that all went through the city of Astrakhan. At that time, the city was called Ajitarkhan. Today in Astrakhan, we have the General Consulate of the Islamic Republic of Iran, Turkmenistan, as well as the representatives from Azerbaijan. From 2006, Astrakhan became part of the global organization of local authorities and international cities. This was a structure that was created by the UN and brings together thousands of associations and cities in the world from 160 countries in the world. Astrakhan has also been a center of international and regional fora and conferences. In 2014, in Astrakhan, we held the 4th Caspian Summit of Caspian states, where the most burning issues of the day were discussed of Caspian country cooperation, biodiversity, safeguarding on the Caspian, as well as other international and environmental issues. Now, since Astrakhan has been working together with UNIDO, and I've said this has been for about 18 months now, we can certainly say now that UNIDO specialists not only have a wealth of knowledge of different specific areas, but specifically I wanted to note that this is a very well-knitted team that focused on attaining the tasks and goals we have established. We hope that the results of our projects will be not only thanks to those present here today, but will also involve all of the countries who are members of UNIDO. And in this way, Astrakhan will become an important sign of the most sustainable cities in the future. What's most important for us is to have an efficient infrastructure. On the slide you can see we have focused and divided this up into several areas of infrastructure: social, transport, engineering, information, market, and economic infrastructures. In each type of infrastructure, the municipality has developed development projects for the next 3 years and with an outlook to develop them for a 10-year period. I would like to also point out that the key idea is to have a policy which is an appropriate policy that will yield results in spite of the change of leadership in the city. It's also important to remember that transitioning to an effective infrastructure is a very complex process. It involves many different sectors of society. All of these need to be very clearly analyzed and forecasted, and they all need to be an integral part of creating a new infrastructure. Only then can we say that any city with the appropriate planning and the right approach can become a smart city and a smart and sustainable city. The city administration of any city, in fact, needs to develop paths for development in involving civil society, business, experts in this process, considering, of course, everyone who lives in the area. It is only in symbiosis of all of these elements will we be able to attain positive results and to successfully bring this project to its close. Sustainable Development Astrakhan is an instrument to attain UNIDO's Sustainable Development Goals. We have a plan that includes practically every aspect of the blocks on the screen and that the previous speaker had just mentioned. There are many different types of development programs for each goal, and each has its own specificity and application. UNIDO brings together the overall direction of this development. We are focusing on territorial development, first of all, territorial development, and also smart development of all infrastructures as a whole. The creation of a sustainable infrastructure and promoting sustainable industrial and fostering innovation is very well seen in Goal 9 of the Sustainable Development Agenda. Our plan, Astrakhan Sustainable Development City, through UNIDO, means that UNIDO is a very strategic partner for us in achieving the Sustainable Development Goals. UNIDO is also an organization which is well known in the world, and thanks to your know-how and the opportunity to raise funds, we can now create a truly sustainable city, a city of sustainable development. We are prepared to do training. The leadership of this city is prepared to modify the way we manage the city. And here we not only have elected leaders, but we work with civil society, young people, scientists, as well as specialized agencies. Our project includes 3 specific blocks: the key indicators in infrastructure development, secondly, the use of project management principles, and thirdly, the implementation of a collaborative model of project management. We also focus on a segmented approach to territorial development and having an infrastructure aspect to the project. On the slide, you can see that we have a systematic approach, a systemic approach for our project, including using the best world practices. We do not have a specific tool of practices and tools. It's an open system, and it leaves the opportunity to include new technologies, methods of territorial development in this overall notion of city development. One of the most important tools for Astrakhan City of Sustainable Development is the energy management system. Together with UNIDO in 2015, we already rolled out a project on the certification of Astrakhan under ISO 1001. We have a roadmap which has a phased-in approach, working with resource and energy systems and organizations. Then we will include social projects, and then we, at the end of the day, will be building apartment houses for the population. Now, in the framework of the first phase in data gathering, we already have some initial results, which can only improve the situation in the future. Our aim is to be the top city which is certified in Russia with regard to energy management in line with UNIDO. We, at the end of the project, would like to have a sustainable social economic development for our municipality. In order to raise the efficiency and performance of our infrastructure, we are focusing on improving the quality of life for our population. And just last week, from the 12th to 14th of October, we held a forum in Astrakhan where we had a major UNIDO presence with many of the different important representatives of UNIDO, as well as the Russian representatives from UNIDO. They were very much involved, and they expressed support for our project and our initiative. Once again, I would like to stress our cooperation with UNIDO, I am convinced, will be successful, and the concept of creating the city as a sustainable development model has already been used by UNIDO in order to attain other goals. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you for giving a very good example of UNIDO cooperation. And specifically, I noted that, of course, you raised a number of issues, but one of the key ones was also the symbiosis that is needed between different aspects of reaching your goals, as well as the need for appropriate policies to be in place so that the transitions are not off track should the governments change or should there be a change in leadership. But thank you for that. I would remind that we need we are already running a little late, so we have about 5 minutes for each intervention, and should we have time later, we will open the floor again for our panelists as well as the audience. My next speaker is the Vice Mayor of Chizhou, China, Mr. Guilin, who is in charge of issues concerning the development and overall management of Chizhou's tourist economy, commercial economy, education, sports, and culture. He has worked in the sector of tourism management for years and is currently overseeing the development of a comprehensive plan for fostering region-based tourism in Chizhou. He has also served as the deputy mayor of Chizhou Municipal Government since 2012. As you know, Mr. Chizhou, India, China, and Nigeria are the countries, are the regions which are going to grow very rapidly in this rural-urban transitions. Please, I would like to have your views on this. Thank you. You have 5 minutes. Thank you.
Ms. MISRA, guests, ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. Thank you. I thank the organizers for the information for me and the city I serve to participate in the exhibition and exchange. And I thank the previous speakers for their keynote speeches and the insights. The meetings of the past 2 years have made me more and more aware that to achieve inclusive and sustainable development, we need both the consensus and also joint experience, hand-holding, and also solving issues hand in hand. The Chizhou city is in southern Anhui province, and in the lower and middle Yangtze River is a city, a livable city, and for tourism. Research of the Archaeological Institute of the Academy of Social Sciences shows that as long as 300,000 and 5,000 years ago, this place was settled. And 1,400 years ago, a Tang Dynasty poet described the city as thousands and thousands of more blossoms and tens and tens of thousands of privates, with egrets and white monkeys, to describe the city. Today, the people describe our city as the city is surrounded by mountains and creeks, and mountains and creeks are in this city, and the city is full of poetry. In this late autumn, when we flew from the Pudong airport westward toward Vienna, on the way we saw millions of migratory birds flying toward us from westward toward China, and 100,000 of them will end up in Chizhou and to spend the long winter together with the people of Chizhou and become a beautiful sight in Chizhou. In economic and social development process lasting nearly 30 years, our city has always adhered to this eco-based city development strategy, advocated green development and development with characteristics. About 20 years ago, we were one of the first Agenda 21 pilot cities in China and the first national eco-economic development demonstration zones. We have established 2 national level habitat protection areas. Today, we have been awarded the China Habitat Environment Prize and the China Excellent Tourism City Prize and the National Forest City and the Low Carbon Pilot City Prize and the Integrated Pilot City Prize. In introducing a national pilot project, our government-private cooperative model has been summarized by the government as the Chizhou model for replication around the country. Ladies and gentlemen, urban development is at a new crossroads how to achieve sustainable development. Each city has its own experience. China's One Belt, One Road strategy as a cooperative development philosophy and initiative has met with approval and response from more and more Asian and European countries, and presenting major strategic opportunities. In the process of across-the-board transformation, accelerated rise, city development, and wealth creation for the citizens, and to achieve a wall-of society, we will implement the 5 projects on environmental protection, industrial revitalization, urban development, eco-culture, and social livelihoods to achieve green rise. This city exhibition and dialogue is a platform for Chizhou to showcase its development results and exchange experience, but also an opportunity for us to broaden our horizons. We will continue to increase our exchange with other cities around the world and the contact with UNIDO. I'd like to take this opportunity to invite you to visit Chizhou to jointly explore the ways and means of achieving sustainable development. I thank Ms. MISRA again. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Go, for maintaining the time. It was exceptional. I also heard that you have a very beautiful city. You described it very well and even spoke of in poetic terms about your city. So I think that is something, the way to go for all our cities. And I think you emphasize the need to be, to maintain industrialization and development along with keeping the sustainable nature, keep maintaining the eco nature of your city, which is very beautiful. I think this allows us to transition very easily into the next speaker, who is Ms. Frida. She is the head of Small Medium Enterprises and Creative Industry Subdivision to Department of Industry and Energy, Jakarta, Indonesia. Ms. Frida is responsible for determining and coordinating the sharing of resources available to develop small and medium enterprises and creative industries in her position. I hope you will give us some, how you are combining the development of the cities, and Jakarta is one of the mega cities, and with your current job also of SMEs and development of the SMEs. Thank you. You have 5 minutes.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you, Ms. Moderator. Thank you to UNIDO for inviting us to participate in this event. Before moving into the main topic, first allow me to give you a glimpse about Jakarta. Jakarta is one of the provinces in Indonesia and is also the capital city of the country. Jakarta has 600 kilometers squares area and consists of 5 municipalities and 1 regency. We have 9.9 million population and about 80% economic activities take place in Jakarta. Can you imagine Jakarta with 600 kilometers area and 9.9 million population? So we have a high density population. It makes us as a government must to give more effort to solve major problem. As I mentioned before, Jakarta have limited area, about limited industrial area and residential area. Besides of that, Jakarta have a traffic jam, flood, sanitation, water supply, and energy. Because of that problems, it's a challenge for government to be more active and creative in solving this problem and make sure for sustainability of Jakarta. Why we have to do all of this? Because we have a vision at 2030 is make Jakarta as a safe, convenient, productive, and sustainable capital city of Indonesia. Is equal with other big cities in the world and populated by a prosperous community. Jakarta also has a mission, is to build human urban infrastructure and facilities to optimize the urban productivity as a world-class city of services, to develop urban culture, to prioritize disaster mitigation-based development, and to balance urban life with living environment. To achieve this, we have smart city concept with 6 indicators. There are economic, environment, governance, living, people, and mobility. In economic, indicator, government has ongoing program. That is encourage people to develop their entrepreneurship and the spirit of innovation in order to achieve high productivity. This one example of small medium enterprises product. Can you imagine if 10% population in Jakarta do small medium enterprises activity? It means 1 million people do this activity. Assuming it has 3 employees, which means there will be 4 million people make a living, improving their life, and will lead to poverty reduction. To help them, we act as a motivator and facilitator to improve the competitiveness. The other government ongoing program are replacing street lighting common with smart LED energy. This replacement is expected to reduce energy use and also make Jakarta more safe and bright in the night. This one is Jakarta Smart Light System. Another ongoing program is build housing apartment and moving people with low economic level who live in riverbank to low-cost apartment. It is to provide a better life and will be lead to reduce flood in Jakarta. This one, low-cost apartment and river restoration and rehabilitation. Besides of that, to reduce the traffic jam, government also developing public transportation infrastructure through the construction of MRT, LRT, and the addition of the bus rapid transit. In Jakarta, we call it Transjakarta. With this improvement of public transport services, it is expected the public would prefer to use public transportation, which means reduce traffic and also reduce the use of fuel or energy. This one of picture bus rapid transportation and the establishment of MRT. Actually, there are many programs ongoing in Jakarta, but because of the time limit, feel free to ask me in a question session or you can visiting our booth in Rotunda. With this program, we hope that our vision at 2030, which makes Jakarta as a safe, convenient, productive, and sustainable capital city of Indonesia will be achieved. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you, Ms. Frida. Actually, we are doing even better than I thought because we are finishing it within the 5 minutes. So, but it was very nice to hear about the city because Jakarta is a big city, as I already said. It's a mega city with issues of traffic, infrastructure, but we are well on the road, as we saw in this presentation, to improving the lives of the citizens. But certainly, cities are also engines of growth. So, you know, we are talking of industry and we are talking of innovation and creative thinking that takes place. So urbanization at one hand are the challenges, but on the other hand, we have these centers create so much economic development for the country. So I'm happy that you touched upon, however briefly, maybe you will have a chance later on to develop on some of these themes of how we are using the energy of a city to develop, to create employment and to create wealth. I now move on to my next speaker from Philippines, the mayor, Mr. Moreno, whose career spans more than 20 years in the corporate legal profession and over 15 years in the public service. In his tenure as mayor of Cagayan de Oro, Mr. Moreno has helped transform the city into the economic hub of southern Philippines. And his city has been named as an emerging city of tomorrow by UN Habitat and was declared grand winner of the United States Agency for Industrial Development Livable Cities Design Challenge 2014. Quite a mouthful. But however, we would like to hear from your experience, Mr. Mayor, because I think it's important to know how you got that award, because what should other cities be doing to win similar awards? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Amita. Thank you. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. And first of all, I'd like to thank UNIDO for extending this invitation for me to be with you in this very informative and comprehensive program. And I can only add that how I wish that we could work together with UNIDO in the future. And Cagayan de Oro is a city, it's a secondary city in the northern part of Mindanao. Mindanao is the southernmost island of the Philippines. And over the last 4 years, Cagayan de Oro had been quite successful in the competitiveness program, having been adjudged among the top 10 in the most competitive cities in the country. E-Readiness Award and many other awards that had been extended to Cagayan de Oro. Before becoming mayor of the city, I was governor of the province of Misamis Oriental, a much larger area. Cagayan de Oro used to be just the capital town of that province. And then it became a city and became a highly urbanized city. When I stepped down as governor because of the legal limit, I decided to run for mayor. Many were in fact surprised given that the city is much smaller compared to the province. But I looked at the bigger picture. The bigger picture is Cagayan de Oro and the rest of the region, including Misamis Oriental. I look at Cagayan de Oro as the flagship of the region, comprising 5 provinces and the region of northern Mindanao, which had exhibited continuing growth and an average growth rate of even higher than the national average. And the challenges had been great, but of course we had to do a lot of innovations. We had involved the academe. Almost all universities and colleges of the city had been involved in governance. And Cagayan de Oro is the trading center, the education center, the government center, and the flagship, the logistics hub of the northern side of Mindanao. And the strategy has been governance with the private sector, with the community, the youth, interfaith, the academe, and of course the other sectors of society. The challenges, of course, are tremendous, and Cagayan de Oro had been quite successful in our programs on addressing education, addressing health services. We have, in our first term of 3 years, we have built more than 400 classrooms and making Cagayan de Oro stronger in terms of its educational strength and future. Health services are also being increased. The most difficult challenge is shelter, housing. And Cagayan de Oro's population is placed at about 650,000 registered population, registered residents. But on any regular day, at least 1.5 million warm bodies are in the city. And these are people mostly from the other parts of the region, coming to Cagayan de Oro to study, coming to Cagayan de Oro to work, coming to Cagayan de Oro for entertainment and recreation. The challenges ahead are daunting and vast. And so we hope that we can continue our partnership with agencies like USAID, Asia Foundation, OSAID, UN Habitat, and of course, as I have started, we look forward to dealing vigorously and healthily with UNIDO in the future. Thank you and good afternoon.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you for giving us the insight into your city, which has, as you said, that it has won several awards, and that it transitioned from a smaller town or city into a big urbanized city with all its challenges of population, which is based in the city, as well as transition population, which comes in every day, and and you need infrastructure and facilities for this population. Also, one of the interesting points I noted in was education, because it is very important to have these urban centers will in fact hold most of the educated people. So developing education and providing the necessary jobs, etc., is very closely linked. So you touched upon a fair number of interesting things. And the other thing was the interface between different community types, say academics with youth and so on. So I think there are some very interesting examples. Maybe you can expand on it later. I call now upon my final speaker, Mr. De Martin, who is the Veneto Regional Government Member, Venice, Italy. He has 20 years of experience as a provincial and regional representative and as president of the Order of Surveyors. He became a candidate for city council because of his expertise and his belief in local residents and businesses that drive the community on a daily basis. I think this flows in well with the previous speaker also. So, and we all have a soft corner for Venice. We know that. So we would really, it's a unique city in the world, and I think with unique challenges, I hope, Mr. Mayor, you will address some of that. Thank you.
Dear Director, ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon.
I bring you greetings from Mayor Luigi Brugnano, together with all of the officers of the municipality of the city of Venice. It's really a great honor for me to be here with you to share a very important moment in the modern history of our 1,000-year-old city. A little more than a year ago, our administration took over the responsibility of leading our city, our citizens, and our economy. Over the past year, we have focused on what it was possible to achieve and proactively suggested new approaches for the Venice City Municipality. I am honored to represent in this context my city, our city of Venice. I say our because it has always been an open city, which has anticipated global trends, established commercial relations with other regions, developed and strongly encouraged education. The city of Venice has always been open to dialogue in the field of art in all of its forms, and also in exporting new styles of architecture and in reshaping over time the city that we all know today. Nowadays, Venice is seeking to relive its Renaissance by repositioning itself within the national and international context with a specific focus on environmental sustainability, urban regeneration, and employment opportunities. This is why we are happy to be here and to have the opportunity to talk about a legislative act that the City Council adopted a few days ago on the presentation of ideas, proposals and projects useful for the creation of an intervention plan under the real estate initiatives of the City of Venice. An urban planning development tool is available on the website of the city in many languages. People don't need to be in the real estate sector or to be landowners in order to participate. In addition to real estate projects, we are also interested in projects involving the establishment of commercial R&D and new technology activities in our city. The administration of the city believes that the only way to regenerate the city, economically, socially, and culturally, is to collect the voices and opinions of all key actors involved. So citizens, associations, public entities, and other stakeholders. For all of these reasons, the city believes that in terms of the conditions to implement its intervention programs, it is important to promote the city and to involve national and economic actors interested in investing in the development of the city, in promoting the city and its territory. And we will be giving priority to proposals and projects that are in line with the city plans contained in the mayor's document, which is also available on the website of the city. Projects must be received no later than the 31st of March 2017. The structure of the city of Venice is extremely complex. Infrastructure is well developed. Venice has a commercial and freight port, an international airport, a high-speed railway station, and a highway links to northern and eastern Europe, and also an industrial area that's one of the largest in Europe and that extends to 2,200 hectares. The population of Venice stands at 260,000. This is both within the historic centre and the mainland, and it is one of the largest Italian cities by territorial extent. The city not only is the historic centre that everybody knows, but much more. It's the lagoon, it's the beaches, the so-called minor islands, the hinterland, the rivers, the fortification system, both within the lagoon and in the mainland, and the large and abandoned industrial area and the surrounding green belt. So there are many, many beautiful things to discover and promote in Venice. We would be delighted to receive delegations from all of you here to discuss dialogue and cooperation. Let us build together, pooling our knowledge and needs, to make Venice into one of the largest logistic platforms in Europe. We believe that the northern Adriatic system of ports, which comprises Venice and Trieste, will be instrumental for the management of marine transport, for improving and optimizing maritime trade flows, and we can achieve this through a joint approach that focuses on synergies and shared interests, and not only on local resources in a parcellated manner. It's for this reason that we are establishing a common work plan together with the city of Trieste. The greatest strength of our challenge is the nature of the city of Venice itself. It is a diverse and varied city with many opportunities. We look forward to meeting you and hopefully receiving you within our city. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you for giving us an insight in the direction in which Venice is moving, because I'm sure we are all interested, because it's a hub, it's an art and a culture hub, and has centuries of history and art located there. So we are really interested in seeing how it develops in the coming months, especially your call for proposal, which ends in March of 2017. I now open the floor to our participants and see if there is any question for our panelists. Please address yourself to the panel members should you know who would like to answer, and then we can take it from there. Thank you. Yes, please. That is UNIDO, I think.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. And thank you very much to all the panelists for their presentation. And my name is Marco Matteini from the Industrial Energy Efficiency Unit of the Energy Department. My question is probably for all the panelists, that if they could mention the two instruments that they think are more useful to receive from the national government or the federal governments for them to act in implementing a sustainable city plan or a sustainable development plan in their cities. Thank you.
Your question is what assistance is needed from the federal government for the cities?
Yes, or which instruments?
Instruments, yeah. Okay, thank you. So I think the mayors would have a better idea of what kind of instruments are needed. So I give the floor first to the Philippines, to Mayor.
About 25 years ago, the Philippines passed the Decentralization Act, giving the local government units some of the governmental functions. And these were generally in agriculture and health. And in return, the local governments were given a guaranteed share in the national taxes, central government support. And in addition, local government units have been given taxing powers. Now, we have seen over the last 25 years that the local government units that had done revenue generation activities had been generally more successful than those who have not. But still, talking about flagship projects, local government units could hardly afford these big flagship projects. So like flood control programs, bridges, which can be very expensive. So talking about, we had our election early this year, and I was asked, what would be my advice to the president? And my answer was, look at how successful some local government units had been and use them as model, the best practices. But still, like I said, national government or federal government support is still very, very crucial. And I would say that the flagship projects that local government units cannot afford should be what the national government should focus on. Thank you.
Would any other mayor like to say a few words? Yes, Mr.
I was very happy to hear that my colleague Oscar Moreno is dealing with the same problems and issues as we are in Russia. In fact, that's true. We are trying to reallocate financial resources that we have in the regions and in regional territories and the municipalities, which we earn there, and the funds we obtain from the federal government. And from this point of view, I would say the same thing. It's very important for the reallocation of funds and the budgets that we have locally should come from local financing resources. Because if we were talking about Astrakhan, we have a very solid administration. Every year we have a consolidated budget. But as a result of the budget rules we have today at the federal level, the funds we get from the federal level come with delays, so it's very difficult for us to fund the projects that we have. So just like in other countries, we need to have a centralized, of course, source of funds, but most importantly, it is up to the municipality to be very active in different government programs so we can consolidate the funds so that we can solve the issues linked to sustainable development. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions from the floor, please? I see that We have no further. Would you like to add? Yes, Mr. Mendler.
Thank you very much. I'm not surprised that financing came up as one of the major issues. As I mentioned, with the TAP program that we are working on at ICLEI, this is one of the main flagship issues as well that is raised from members from all over the globe that we have. That is, how do we finance all of our projects there? And I think maybe to add to this question, what can the national government do? One of the things that we've seen is that there's a difficulty of local governments accessing a large amount of funds that is internationally available through development banks, through private investors, through climate finance. Now, since we have the Paris Agreement, there's a lot of funds around on the international arena, but it is very, very difficult for local governments to directly access these. As a matter of fact, in many cases, you have situations where a project proposal would have to go through several layers of government, not just from the local to the federal level, but maybe from the local to the provincial level, or depending which country you're talking about, through several levels of government before there's even a chance of accessing these global funds. And so this is something that is maybe worth a more international debate, how these sometimes long ways with many hurdles to access international finance sources for local governments can be simplified, can be reduced, and can be made much quicker, since we usually don't have so much time to act and wait for the paperwork to be done with these kind of things. Thank you.
Thank you. I give the floor to the mayor from Venice, please.
Ho ascoltato con molto interesse oggi, anche se non capisco bene l'inglese, però qualcosa riesco a tradurre. E ho capito una cosa, che bisogna fare poche cose, ma possibili, e che abbiano una sostenibilità nel medio-breve periodo. Perché dico questo? Perché una stabilità sociale si fonda se c'è lavoro. Se non c'è lavoro, c'è un territorio instabile. La città di Venezia non ha più finanziamenti. È una città di interesse universale per l'ONU. E penso che molte altre città abbiano bisogno di sostegno, non solo Venezia. Quindi innanzitutto progetti e risorse per creare la stabilità sociale del territorio.
Okay. I'm not an official translator, so you would forgive me, right? Okay, basically, he said that he listened all the intervention with a lot of interest, and even if he doesn't speak a very good English, he could understand something. That is that we have to do a few things in general, but possible. We should target possible actions rather than biggest one, and that in this case, the action should be based pretty much on, sustainability in this case would be based on job and job creation, and that Venice doesn't really have that many funding at the moment, and that's what we should focus on in this specific case related to the city of Venice. Thanks.
Yes, I think maybe we take yours as the last question of this session.
My name is Sergei Golovanov, and I cannot resist to ask this question. This is a unique situation. We have a brilliant presentation of mayors from different countries. And it would be very interesting to know how this theoretical work of international bodies like International Telecommunication Union, ISO, and others in standardization of sustainability for cities, like indicators of quality of life, like new metrics and so on. There are a lot of experts, there are a lot of clever guys working. Question quickly to ask each of you, if possible, is it useful for you in your real life and real practice?
Thank you. Mr. Moreno.
It is very useful. And how I wish we could connect with those institutions that you have mentioned. And you know, Mr. Mendley had talked about, because in the past, ODA assistance was provided directly to the national government in the past. And it was only recently, over the last 10 years or so, when some of these support were extended directly to provincial or lower levels. I was governor of Misamis Oriental, and we had a good project undertaken with the Australian government. And now we have this project with the USAID, UN Habitat, and although the funding is not that much, it's more on capability building. And this is where hopefully we could build on the credibility that the city would have in its dealings with all of these agencies. And that would also connect us to the institutions that you have mentioned, those who can guide us as we try to adopt new methodologies, new systems, in order to improve ourselves and our cities. It is indeed very, very crucial. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other panelist would like to comment on that? Okay, last comment, then I conclude. Thank you.
Thank you for that. We are very much involved in these processes with the ISO, actually, for standardization. That is one of the things that we do under the Smart Cities agenda at ICLE. The question, I think, for standards is not so much whether or not it is specifically useful for one city or another, the way that it is done at the ISO, but rather what is on offer from these kind of standards and how they're then implemented in cities. Because the one thing that we've had a lot of discussions around these internally, whether or not we should ask for the mandate from our member cities to represent them within this process. We did at the end, and we got the mandate. And what we've been pushing for is that at the end of the day, if you have something like an ISO standard, that it is not something that is implemented on a large scale and forced upon cities as now the standard that comes from the ISO telling the mayors around the world how do they run their city, how should they develop, and even how should they collect data on it. But rather the other way around, that it is good that this discussion is happening. And I think actually this should be an open invitation to cities, Mr. Moreno, to contribute to that, because this is what we're there for as a network. I mean, this is what we hope that cities are engaging on with us, that they tell us these are their opinions, please bring this to the ISO discussion, so to make sure that the interests of cities are happening within that, because it is not the industry that should define these kind of standards. It should be the cities, and then in the end it should be open for cities to do with these standards whatever they think locally they need to do with it. So I hope this answers the question a little bit.
Thank you for your comments, and I would like to thank my very highly esteemed panel of mayors and director and government officials who are here, who have talked about the varied and the differentiated issues surrounding urbanization and the development of cities, the challenges that they are facing, huge challenges of urbanization in the coming decades that they will see with the younger population in some places and in older population in some of the cities. So there is a very differentiated set of issues for each maybe region or each country, and then going down to the local level to the cities. But you heard from their experiences, their vision for the future. Most of these are evolving. You heard even the call for proposals. So there's a lot of work that is ongoing. And we have here also the body from represented by Mr. Mendley, who gave us how this is being done at the international level, bringing people together and bringing the challenges and necessities to work. UNIDO, as a last point, that UNIDO, of course, has great experience in accessing international finance. We already already work with the Global Environment Facility, with the Montreal Protocol. These are the international protocols, and many of them would be applicable. And also the new Climate Fund, we are already looking of ways of accessing the Climate Fund. So in the future, I mean, I think that would be a good way to also cooperate with UNIDO, because you will have enough experience here in UNIDO to tell you how to move forward. On that note, I wish, I thank all my panelists, and I hope you would give them a good round of applause. Thank you.